Hello, welcome back to the garden. Welcome if you're new. I have a cozy garden video for you this week. So pop the kettle, make yourself a cup of tea, hot chocolate, coffee, whatever your drink of choice is. Settle in and let's potter in the garden. I am doing everything except what I'm supposed to be doing. I am supposed to be planting spring bulbs, but for some reason I just don't want to. So I am pottering, doing everything else. I think it's because where I want to put the spring bulbs, the ground is a bit hard. I want to put them into the grass where the meadow is. And the thoughts of having to dig there to put them in. It's actually a really nice autumnal sunny day today. I'm pottering about the garden to see what other jobs I need doing. Also, we're gonna visit the bees at the end of the video as well. So for anyone who has asked any questions about how the bees are doing, towards the end of the video, I have a little update. As I was trimming back some of the herbs that are in the buckets in the front, I decided I wanted to go to the garden centre. Some of the pots in the front need a little bit of colour now that we're getting into the cooler season. I was also not caffeinated, so I decided to head to the garden centre to get some bedding plants to add a bit of colour and also get myself a nice warm coffee. So this time of year, the garden centres are not as exciting as they are in spring and in summertime. There's not as much plants. However, there is still some things you can get. Now today, I was delighted because I found a bargain section. There was like sale plants. So there was some half dead perennials for a couple of euro, which made my day because I was not expecting to find them. This time of year you'll find just lots of bedding plants, some pansies, violas, heathers, cyclamens. Great if you want to do little containers or if you want to do a winter hanging basket. There's also still lots of perennials as well. Now is a great time if you want to plant any shrubs, perennials, little trees. I find this time of year the soil is warm from summer, and if you're like me, you probably had a lot of rain recently, so it's nice and moist as well. So I find planting anything now, especially perennials, lets the roots settle in over winter and gives them an extra bit of time to grow. So the garden centres this time of year, I mean, they hit different. That's all you'll kind of find, but it still gives me a fix. I will do absolutely anything but plant bulbs, which is the job I had set aside for today. I am dancing around the bulb job. I went into the garden centre just to get these to freshen up some, not all of the pots, but just some of them, especially the ones that already have bulbs in them. So I was going to put these on top just for a bit of autumnal colour. But I ended up, there was a little sale rack and there was perennials and they were €3. So I'm going to start with my bargain. Actually, first of all, these were not on sale, but they were $2.99. So this is Senecio. Am I saying that right? Senecio. I definitely paid at least $9.99 for a clump of it back in like May time, I think. We featured it in the telly segment at Bloom. The girl in the garden centre out in Selbridge that I do go to, she was like, Senecio Angel's Wings. This isn't Angel Wings, it's Cineria. But I got 3 of them because why not? They were $2.99. But I'm just looking at them and they're very dry. They are very dry. So I just have a tray of, there was actually rainwater in it anyway, so I'm just going to sit them in it before I do anything with them so they can have a bit of a drink. The leaves are on the flop, so I'm going to pop them in there. Also, I'm sitting on wet grass, so my knees are going to be grass stained. Now, you remember like a month ago I visited June Blake's garden and stunning. I visited Hunting Brook as well. It has its own video because it deserves it. But when I was in her garden, it was like September time and her asters were beautiful. And then when I was in the shop, these were in the sale section for €3. They were $9.99. Now they do have a bit of, it's not looking fresh. I mean, need to be cut back and they have a bit of powdery mildew on them. Not that I can't cut back and treat, and €3 bargain. Now, did you see as well there was an episode of Gardener's World and it was, I'm going to say September time as well, and Rachel Detame, I think is her name, Detame, she's a beautiful woman. Like, she's just a lady. Stunning woman. Anyway, she had visited a garden and there was an aster that was in a shady spot. Now, this one just says, it does have the variety. Aster Dumosus Alpha Light. I'm going to have a look on Google and see if this will tolerate a tiny bit of shade. I'm not going to put this in a pot. Actually, I might put it into the pot because obviously it has powdery mildew on it. I don't know if you can see. So it might be wise of me to put it into a pot before putting it into the border because someone's dog doesn't like me vlogging. I might actually put this into a pot, cut it back, treat it. It's obviously just been left out in the rain, like a lot of things, but I don't want to introduce anything into my border. So I got 2 of them because they're lovely big clumps. And they were €3. Like, they look lovely. But next year, they will be another bit of September kind of colour. The colour as well, purple and then the orange of Rudbeckia and all the sneeze weeds and all them. I think it will be a nice contrast. That's what it was like in June's border. When I saw them, I was like, yes, I'm going to get them. Then, so I actually only went in to get bedding plants, and I'm not a massive fan of bedding plants because I think, especially during summertime, you can grow so many things that are better for pollinators, but this time of year, they are kind of the only thing that will give you a bit of colour. Obviously the hellebores, which you saw on the front and things like that. But if you want a little punch, a little pick-me-up when the nights are dark and the mornings are grey, this time of year I allow them. Then what else I get? I was actually surprised to see there was still a lot of mums left. I think the frost can kill them. I know they like water. I think frost kills some of them. I do have one over there that hasn't flowered yet. And I must look back because I think it was November when it flowered last year. It was quite mild. But I find when I get these, I treat them like the annuals because they don't always come back. But I think you can get perennial varieties. These were 3 for €5. Again, another little sale. The sign had 2 for €5 and they were 3. So I just got 3 of them and I thought they'd be a nice, it was like €15 for the big clump of one. I thought I'll put 3 of these in a pot and it'll give me a bit of colour. So that's all I got. But this time of year, check out the bargain bins because especially if it's a perennial, just whip out your phone, give it a quick Google. Is this whatever that's on sale, €2-3? Obviously you're not gonna, it'll be next year when it looks good in your garden. But yeah, like it's a great time of year now to plant perennials for next year and to move things. So I don't know, it's the time for the bargain bin. Last year my bargain was I got what's the things I kill? They're supposed to like shade, but they don't like shade in my garden. Astilbes. I got 4 Astilbes for €4 each, down from a tenner. I see that's good going. It's good going. I'm going to plant up a few pots and then I need to decide what I'm going to do with the bulbs. I was looking at the mini meadow out the front. I would like to put some bulbs in it, but I used cardboard. That's why I was touching the soil. I wanted to see if the cardboard had rotted down. There was lots of rain last week as well. If the soil is nice and soft, I think the reason why I hate putting bulbs in the ground is because the ground can be hard and I struggle even with my bulb digger thing. Yeah, I think that's why I procrastinate. But yeah, let's do some jobs and stop the waffling. Have you ever seen such a weedy pot? There's actually, if you look closely, sadly, there's a dead rose. I got 4 bare root roses back in January and 3 of them took and survived. I popped them into a pot. This little one did not take, and it is completely dead. The stem is absolutely black. I decided to put those 2 bargain asters that I got into a pot. When I was looking at them further, I think what has happened to them is they got too much water on the foliage, so I'm not sure if when they were getting watered in the garden centre, I found that the soil and the roots of the plant itself were really, really dry. So it could have been an issue that maybe it got too much rain or it didn't just get watered properly. But I reckon with popping this into a bigger pot, giving it a nice drink of water, and I'm going to give it a little feed as well because it is flowering. So I'm going to give it some liquid seaweed and I'll just see how it gets on over winter in the pot and what I can do. If it improves in condition, then next year I'm going to pop it into the border. So whenever I see a gap popping up, I'll stick it in. In my wheelbarrow, I have a mix of compost. So I have some compost that is from my hot bin. Then I have some compost that is old compost from pots. And then I did buy a fresh bag of potting mix. And I was actually able to get peat free. I was saying last year how it's a lot harder in the Irish garden centres to find peat free compost. I find in the UK a lot of people it's much easier to get. But thankfully, I was pleasantly surprised there was a lot of peat-free options available. It would be nice to see more Irish companies having peat-free compost because I do like to shop local. I know that Quick Crop, where I got my big bag of mulch from earlier in spring, I know that they do peat-free options as well. When I'm putting the pots together, what I'll do is I'll put the kind of crappy compost at the bottom. I'll make sure there's enough drainage as well. I probably do 2/3 new compost at the top, and then that third at the bottom is the old compost or compost that I've taken from the hot bin. I have some pots that already have spring bulbs in them. So they're like a bulb lasagna container. And I do have a video, it's on the Cottage Garden playlist. It might be from maybe 2 winters ago. Might have some from last year as well, where I did a bulb lasagna. So if you're planting pots, it's a fun way to have a consistent flow of spring bulbs. Do know that this long orange container, I have some hyacinths and I have tulips in them. So just to cover them from winter and also to give me a bit of colour in this area. I do need to redo these pots for winter, but I just wanted to add in some of the pansies and violas. And you'll see that I'm going to pack them in spring and summertime. If you're planting pansies, you'd probably give a bit more space. But because in winter, with the light changing, things don't grow as quickly or as full. So I am packing them in. I decided to pop the asters out into the front garden where, as my regular viewers might remember, I did a pot display in the front. Well, I only lost a lupin, so the slugs ate a lupin, but the other pots that I planted up back in, I think it was mid-May, maybe early June, I'm actually really surprised because a lot of them still have foliage and there's still some flowers on them. And I thought that these would be like absolutely gone, but there still is a bit of colour in them. And even having the foliage, it's nice when I come home, drive in the driveway. So I just popped some of the pots here just to give me a little bit of colour for now. And this shady border that I planted back in September time, if you saw it, those plants have settled in really nicely. I have been keeping on top with watering them. Because they're only newly planted, I didn't want them to dry out, but we did have a good bit of rain as well, so that has definitely helped the roots settle in. It's also getting close to that time of year where it's time to put the dahlias to bed, but while there's no sign of frost just yet, I can get away with it. Where I am on the east coast of Ireland and we're having walls in the garden, I have a bit of a microclimate where it's a little bit warm. Now I do get frost when it comes, but just not as bad as exposed areas, or if you're on like the west coast of Ireland, you probably get it quicker. So I get away with having the dahlias out a bit longer. I think what I'm going to do this year is the same as last year. I'm going to put what's in a pot in the greenhouse, and I think I'm going to mulch the dahlias in the beds like I did last year. And I know what you're thinking, girl, you did not plant one spring bulb in this video like you said you were going to do. That's correct, I didn't, because I actually needed to go and check in on the bees. Another procrastination distraction job from planting the spring bulbs. So now that it is getting much cooler, as beekeepers, we do not open the hives below 10 degrees because it is too cold and you could damage the brood, but also the bees are now starting to hibernate. However, in saying that, on the day I was filming this, the bees were really active because it was nice and sunny. It was around 14-15 degrees and there was lots of ivy flowering, so I think they were getting some of that good ivy flow. The first thing that I wanted to do with the hive was, I noticed that the brood chamber on this box, that the wood had warped slightly in some areas. So I wanted to tape up the gaps, and I also needed to replace the crown board because I noticed that the crown board had become slightly damaged. And one thing that the bees, and especially the Irish native bee, so the Irish native bee is Apis mellifera mellifera. It's also, I think, native to the UK as well. They are really good at living in a cold temperature, but the one thing that will make them suffer is damp. So if the hive gets really, really wet and there's a lot of condensation, then that is going to do them a lot of harm over winter. I am going to repair any of the damaged pieces and I'm going to tape up the sides as well. While I have the lid off the hive, I am going to give them some food. In summer, when you remove the super boxes and collect honey, you can feed the bees with a sugar syrup. Now, I didn't take any honey off the bees this year because, well, they didn't have any to give me. So once it gets colder and it comes into the winter months, you can feed them a fondant. And I think the reason why you feed them fondant in winter is because when they are hibernating and the temperature is cold, they cluster in like a ball in the center of the hive. And I think with the fondant, they can just get up, get the fondant and eat it straight away. I don't think they store it. I think they just eat it. So now that the temperatures are getting colder, I made sure that both this hive and the nuke as well have some fondant. Now hives do need ventilation, so you don't want to have it airtight. However, I'm just going to cover any of the large gaps at the hive. This is also really good to stop any robbing as well, so if there's wasps trying to get in any tiny holes, it's good to patch them up. The bees will still have ventilation that's coming in from the roof, but I just wanted to make sure that on a stormy winter's evening when a lot of rain is coming down, that it's not going to get inside the hive. I also have the hive in a sheltered area. It still gets rain, but there is lots of shrubs around it that hopefully if there is any storms, it's going to just help it. It's not in a big exposed kind of field, if that makes sense. There's a thing that us beekeepers do and it's called a heft test. So if you gently lift up the hive, if you can, if it's really, really light, then it could be a sign that the poor bees don't have enough honey. And in winter, if it's really light, then you can just quickly pop off the lid and give them some fondant. So it's a quick way to see if the bees are low on stores. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm using a ratchet strap to strap down the hive to the hive stand, because I woke up one night last week when the wind, I don't know if it was storm something, it was very stormy, and my first thought was, oh my god, what if the bees blow over? Now thankfully there's a good bit of weight in the box, but still, I don't want to wake up and have those intrusive thoughts. So I am strapping the hive down to the stand. Also, I just want to show you, I don't know if you can see all of the dead wasps in the feeder. So the wasps had got in. Oh, there's a little bee here. I'll have to... Also, I think all of this is propolis on the old frame. As you can see, it's after breaking there. I could probably glue it back together actually. I'm not going to throw it out because I could probably fix it. But yeah, look at all the wasps in here. All wasps. So the wasps are obviously not smart enough to get out because there's no bees in here. So the wasps, well, it just goes to show that my girls took care of them. Also, I just checked the weight as well. Sorry about the background noise. I just checked the weight and it seems like quite heavy. So I've given them feed just as an extra thing, because although the weather is mild today, it's like 14 degrees now. But as you can see, they're on that ivy flow, so they're quite active. So I just gave them fondant because we're getting late into the season. There's not much for them to forage. But I'm really surprised to see them so active. So I'm going to message the people in my group to be like, you know, is this normal? The other hive as well is really active. So I'm just going to tidy up my bits and check on the nook. Back in September, I was saying how the swarm that I caught, they had superseded and there was a new queen in it. So I did plan to hive them up. However, I made a decision that the queen started laying. It was around about August time that the new queen started to lay. And if I had hived them up and put them into like a 10 or a 12 framed hive, she wouldn't have filled it out with bees. Even though she's a really good layer, I thought it would be more smart to leave them fill out the nuke frames in the nuke box. That way they've less space to try and heat up. So if I put a small cluster of bees in a huge hive right before winter, they're going to have to use so much energy to try and stay warm. Whereas by being in the smaller box, now they still have room. There is, I think the edge frames they're still filling out. It just means come springtime, I will have to be really on the ball, because if the weather is good, let's say in March, April, and it gets a bit warm, I'll have to be on the ball to make sure that I do give them more space and that they go into the hive. Because if bees don't have space, now around about spring and summertime, then it can trigger them into swarming. But for now, they seem quite happy in the smaller box. And I'm just checking the wood to see if there's much moisture getting in. So just before I was checking these, we had some heavy rain. So I wanted to just make sure that I don't mind the outside of the box being wet, but I just wanted to see was there any water getting in on the inside. I also gave the bees some fondant and I just gently shooed away. I know sometimes it can look a bit rough, but the reason why I was shooing away the bees from the top was because I didn't want to trap them in the top section, because I'm after putting the bag of fondant over the hole on the crown board, so those bees can't get back in. So I just flick them away so that I could put the lid on, and then they will fly back through the front entrance. I hope you enjoyed my mixed bag of a garden vlog today. I promise I'll come back and do some spring bulbs. I think I've seen people lift the turf away, so they cut out a square of turf and lay some bulbs. I don't know, I'll figure it out, but I will be back because I will do eventually the bulbs. Cheeky thumbs up if you like this video. If you're new, do say hello in the comment section, introduce yourself, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. If you are new to my channel, or if you haven't been around in a while and you want more garden videos, I have a playlist on my channel that is just for the gardening content. So if you want to see my journey from going from a square patch of grass in the front and the back to my attempt at a cottage garden, then check out the cottage garden playlist. I'll pop a card here and also in the description box as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new, and like and comment and say hello to the community in the comments section below.